In this video, we are going to talk about Vechain, some of its recent price action, the important support and resistance areas, and where we can expect the price of Vechain to go in the next few days and weeks. So we'll start by looking at the weekly chart, and what we can see right here is that Vechain is in a very horrible downtrend. Since late 2024, Vechain went down over 90% since the recent top, about 92%, and also in the longer term, we've seen Vechain drop even more than that since the all-time high back in the old season of 2021. We have seen Vechain drop about 97 to 98%. This is, of course, a very brutal downtrend. This is absolutely devastating to anyone who has held Vechain during that time. And recently, we have seen Vechain consolidating. The downtrend is looking like it has slowed down, although in the last couple of weeks, it may have potentially continued to drop further. As you can see, 2 weeks ago, we've seen Vechain get a very significant red candle again. Before that, Vechain did try to get a bit of a rally, but it was not very strong, and it clearly did not continue for long. Overall, we've seen Vechain hold about the same price since February of 2026 for a few months now. And now recently it is at the very lowest part of this consolidation area. It is now at this level of support that it got a rally from twice recently, once in February and then again in late March. So Vechain is testing this area again to see if it can get support from here. We've seen Vechain fight with this area for a couple of weeks now. It seems like this consolidation and the slowing down of the downtrend by Vechain, as well as even attempting to get a rally, is correlating with Bitcoin getting a very significant rally recently. Bitcoin went from about 60k all the way up to over 80k. It is currently in the mid 70s, and in the long term, I definitely think that we are still in a bear market. I think that Bitcoin will most likely head even below 60k sometime in 2026. I think that we are still definitely not in a bull market and that Bitcoin has a lot further to go down. In the shorter term, just in the next few weeks or so, it is definitely possible for Bitcoin to continue rallying into the mid 80s or even over 90k, but I think that it will most likely not get too close to its all-time high and it will continue dropping further, probably below 60k as I said. So if that is the case, once Bitcoin does continue dropping, the downtrend for Vechain will most likely continue as well, and it will likely be very brutal, like we've seen Vechain drop very strongly in the past. Since October of 2025, since we've seen Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market doing very poorly and the bear market started, we've seen Vechain do absolutely horribly and just continuing to drop further and further without any sign of stopping. Until, as I said, recently, when we've seen the consolidation with Bitcoin getting its relief rally. So I think that the most likely outcome for Vechain is to just continue dropping a lot further. If we look back a few years on the chart, we can see that Vechain is below any support area that it had in recent years. It is at an area where Vechain has consolidated at back around 2019 and 2020. We've seen Vechain hover around these areas as support and resistance a few times back then, but these are very old support and resistance areas and they are probably not quite as strong as anything that we've had recently. So really, in my opinion, there is a lot more room for Vechain to drop, probably even all the way down to this support area. This one right here seems a lot stronger. This is basically the all-time low for Vechain from back in the bear market of 2018. So I think that in the long term, it is very likely that we will see the bear market continuing and Vechain dropping all the way down to this all-time low area. This would still be a drop of about 60% from where Vechain is at right now. So there is definitely a lot more room for Vechain to drop, and it could potentially even form new all-time lows. It depends on how bad the bear market is. So despite Vechain already dropping about 98% from its all-time high, do not mistake it for thinking that it can't drop any further and it doesn't have any more room to drop. It can still drop a lot, over 50%. And there's really no floor for it. Just because it dropped 99% already doesn't mean it can't drop 99% again. There is always more room for it to drop. That's just the reality with most of these altcoins. Really, with Vechain, it seems like it is one of those altcoins that did very well back in previous cycles, but then just completely died in the bear market following it. And really, I don't think that it's likely that Vechain will ever create a new all-time high. I think that it will most likely continue to stay below it basically forever, or at least for many, many years. I think that in the next bull market, it is possible for it to perhaps cross this high from back in December 2024. So it can definitely still get very significant rallies in the future. This would already be a rally of over 10x from where Vechain is at right now. And if it does drop all the way down to its all-time low, then from there, it would be even a much larger rally, potentially even 20 to 30x. But this is, of course, very speculative at the moment. It's not something that I can say is likely right now, but it is something that is possible generally once we are back in a bull market, probably in a year or even more than that. And in the shorter term, I am not very optimistic about Vechain. Also, in general, I think that it's not a great time for altcoins. I think that since we are still in a bear market, most likely in the next few months, I think that most altcoins will not do so well. Historically, for altcoins to outperform Bitcoin, we first need to see Bitcoin crossing into new all-time highs, and then also Ethereum getting new all-time highs. That's what historically leads to an alt season, and right now we are very far away from that scenario. Both Bitcoin and Ethereum are way below their all-time highs, and it is most likely for most altcoins to underperform Bitcoin significantly. And with Vechain, I don't see any reason to why that wouldn't be the case as well. The structure of Vechain is not looking very promising at all, and the altcoin market in general is not looking great either. So with these two combined, I would definitely not get into Vechain myself at the moment. Of course, this isn't financial advice whatsoever, but that's just what I would personally do. So that's going to be it for this video about Vechain. If you enjoyed it and you want more updates about Vechain as well as other altcoins, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.